Build your business and improve your finances from the inside out with Joan Sotkin on The Prosperity Show.
Hi everyone, Joan Sotkin here, and The Prosperity Show provides a holistic approach to building your business or professional practice. And because who you are and how you live your life forms the foundation of your business, we focus on your physical, emotional, and spiritual health so you can build a strong base for your success. And along with a personal focus, The Prosperity Show also provides information about real-world business and financial skills that will ensure your financial success. My main site is prosperityplace.com, where you can download free audios and ebooks designed to help you build your money muscles and live a happier, healthier, more prosperous life. The other day, I was talking to someone who had taken advantage of one of my complimentary coaching calls, and she defined the problem as never having enough money. And this is not the first time I've heard that. I would say that 95% of the people who contact me say that they don't have enough, that they don't have enough to do what they want, they don't have enough to invest in their business the way they want, that they're always in this not enough place, although they don't see it as always being in a not enough place. But if you've got a not enough habit, you're going to make decisions that allow you to maintain that not enough habit. Not enough is not a financial state of being, it's a mental state of being. Because unless you've got millions of dollars in the bank or billions of dollars in the bank, you can always have more. And I always wonder about people who have to have more and more and more, no matter how many billions they have, what's going on inside of them. And I'll mention that in a minute. All right, so in my book, Build Your Money Muscles, I talk about the three main categories. There's less than enough, just enough, and more than enough. So if you're always in that less than enough place, then you feel as if there just isn't enough money for what you want. And clearly, you have to make more. And the decisions you make are going to determine whether or not you earn more and how you manage what you have. But it's hard to get to a higher state, just enough or more than enough, when you feel not enough about who you are. Now, there is the opposite end, and I want to mention that because I'll get back to the feelings behind it. A lot of people who have much more than enough also feel not enough, which is why they feel compelled to get more and more and more and to hoard what they have. So I'm talking about today for those of you who feel you have not enough, and I don't care what the number is. I have heard I don't have enough from people who make $30,000 a year, from people who make $100,000 a year, and people who make $200,000 a year. So it's not a number, it's a feeling. And it's a willingness to perceive yourself and what you have as enough. And to define what enough is for you so that you can experience a certain amount of peace of mind along with whatever your financial position might be. When people make, say, $100,000 a year and they have a family, there's always expenses that can come up. If you have this mindset that you want to get and buy and have whatever you want, because there's always more to get. It's interesting that studies are showing that people now are going more for experiences than they are for things. And I think that's wonderful that we're getting past the point in our evolution where we think that lots of things and a huge house and all the trappings of wealth are going to make us happy, because it's clear that that's not true. Studies show that if you make more than $75,000 a year, no matter how much more you make, you're not any happier than someone who makes $75,000 a year. So what is this not enough thing? It's a habit. It's a way of perceiving your life and who you are in relation to other people. And it really has nothing to do with money, and yet because you have to deal with money on a daily basis, it does have to do with money. So I think it's important that you come to understand what enough is for you, and then to make sure that you're earning that and that you have the skills you need in order to earn that. For example, if you decide that $50,000 a year is enough, and you take into account how much taxes you're going to have to pay and that sort of thing, and let's just take the number $50,000 in a year. And you have to look at your expenses and what's left over, but let's take the number $50,000 a year. So if you're only making $40,000, then you obviously have to find $10,000 a year more someplace. And you have to know enough about the marketplace to know whether you can produce goods or services, and whether you can market those goods and services to an identifiable group of people that will bring in an extra $10,000 a year. So you're looking at about, $750 to $800 a month more than you're making now. I find it easier to look at things in terms of months, and I keep track of my money in terms of months, because then I can see the trends and what's going on. It may work differently for you, but you have to think this way. You can't just say, well, I don't have enough. You have to say, how much do I need? How much do I have? And how much more do I need? And how can I get that more? And stop feeling sorry for yourself. It's a matter of taking action. Now, I know that having just enough is easier than having more than enough, believe it or not. Because if you have just enough, then you know exactly where the money has to go. Anything more than that, you have to make a different kind of decision, and every dollar is a decision. So it's easier to stay in actually a less than enough space, because then you can always say, oh, I haven't got enough, and you stay in that longing space because longing is your habit. Or you get to just enough where you know exactly what to do with your money, but you feel trapped because you can't take that vacation, you can't buy the new iPhone, you can't do what you want to do. So in order to get to enough, and a lot of people are afraid to say I have enough because they're afraid if they're satisfied with what they have, they'll never have more. And the paradox is, the more satisfied you are and the more habitual satisfaction is for you, the more likely you are to make decisions and take actions that will perpetrate that satisfaction. But if your habit is not enough, no matter where you are, you're going to be in that not enough space. And in today's world, that's so easy because there's that Tesla that's so exciting, or that program that you really want to buy for $3,000. And there's that sense that you just don't have enough and everyone else seems to have more, which is certainly not true. So the first thing you have to do is really look at your values. What is it worth it to me? If you want to make, say, double your current amount of money, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to work harder at making money. You're going to certainly have to do a better job of taking care of your money. So are you willing to give up time for money? Let's forget for the moment about the 4-hour work week. I never got to buy into that. If you want to earn more, you're going to have to work more until you find something that brings you passive income. That's a possibility. But as you're developing the passive income, you're going to have to work more hours. And I was talking to someone the other day who has a full-time job and is in a not enough position, and she wants to make more money. And she realizes that she has to put in time after work and on weekends to get something going. We've talked on this program with Nick Loper, who has the show, The Side Hustle Nation. And his thing is about helping people find a side hustle so they can build up a business on the side before they decide to quit their jobs and go full time. That's a big leap to go from salary to being in business for yourself. And I know a lot of you who are listening to this have jobs and would like to be in business for yourself. But there's a whole mindset that has to be developed. If you think that going into business for yourself is going to make it easier to make more money, that's not true. The failure rate is high, and a lot of entrepreneurs work a lot of hours because they want the freedom of making decisions on their own. But you have to put in the time. So you really have to decide what matters to you. What is the purpose of your life? What is it you want to accomplish with your life? And then to look at why you need to do that. I know someone who is always seeking ways of making millions of dollars, and he's working very hard, doing a lot of different things. And I often wonder what his motivation is. Does he want to do it for the accolades he gets? Does he want to do it to feel more equal to some people? Is your motivation for making a lot of money really coming from a peaceful, heartfelt space? Or is it to satisfy your need to feel more valuable? And you don't feel valuable just as you are. And that's true for a lot of people who have to dress in fancy clothes and designer labels, and they really care what other people think. And so you really have to look at what matters to me. People will say to me, well, I want to earn a lot of money so I can give more away. Well, is that true? Do you really want to work a lot harder than you're working now in order to give money away? Or can you give away enough for the amount you're earning to be okay with what that is, to be satisfied with what you can give? And the point is that not enough, I want you to really get this, not enough is a feeling as much as anything else. I mean, I've heard stories of janitors who saved enough money. There was one story about a janitor who saved enough money to send kids to college. It's a perception. And very often, that feeling of not enough is the same feeling of deprivation and longing you had as a child. If you felt deprived of love and attention, if you came from a poor family and you were brought up in that space of really being poor. I have some clients who come from really poor backgrounds. And it's hard to get that feeling of deprivation out of your system. And it's a habit. And until you can deal with that feeling and understand where it comes from and allow yourself to really feel the feeling, then you're always going to be trying to find something to neutralize that feeling of deprivation and longing for more. Because what good is having all the stuff and all the money if inside you're always in turmoil? I mean, what kind of life, from my point of view, I have to ask, what kind of life is that? And And what are you teaching your kids if you have them in terms of values? And this is why I say that feeling goals are as important as doing goals. What do you want to feel like? And for example, if you want to say, well, I don't want to be working all the time. I want to have occasional vacations. Okay, that doesn't mean you have to spend $10,000 on a vacation. There are lots of ways of doing vacations rather inexpensively. I know in Santa Fe we have a hostel where people come and stay, and it's really inexpensive. And people just find ways of doing things once they're willing to be satisfied with what they have and to make it work for them. I feel so lucky that I went through that period where I had given everything I owned away, and I had to learn how to be satisfied with whatever I had on a day-to-day basis. If there was no food, then I felt I was learning how to fast. To be able to look at every moment that you're experiencing as the place where you need to be. And instead of saying, I don't have enough to get where I want to be, what about wanting to be where you are? What a concept. That where I am is exactly where I need to be to learn what I need to learn in order to become who I'm becoming. And on the bottom of this all is the feelings. I said something before about people who I consider to be over-earners, where they're always going after more money. They're never satisfied with what they have. They're not sharing what they have with others. You know, when you say, I want to earn money so I can give some away, well, you'll find it very interesting when you finally start amassing that money. At what point do you have enough so you can give some away? And you might say, well, I have to invest what I have so I can make more to give it away. It's a vicious cycle. And if you can determine what is really enough. Now, basically, all you need is enough to pay your rent and your food and your basic expenses. How much is that? Have you written that down? People who keep track of their money are much more satisfied with what they have than people who don't and suffer from financial vagueness syndrome. They're never sure how much they have, how much is coming in, how much they really need, and how much is left over. And that's why I think it's really important to look at the numbers, to keep track of the numbers. I've mentioned this before, but I do have a spreadsheet that you can download, and there's a video that goes with it in order to learn how to use it. If you go to prosperityplace.com/spreadsheet, then you'll see the video and you can download the spreadsheet. And this is what I use to keep track of my money. One of my clients just sent me the spreadsheet that he uses, and quite frankly, I think it's far too complicated. One of the hard things about developing the habit of keeping track of your money, you don't want it to take a lot of time. You want it to be as simple as possible. And I think for me, that means using software. For my business, I use QuickBooks. For my personal, I use Quicken. So keeping track of everything in the software so I can see exactly what I've spent and what's coming in. And then I use this spreadsheet to see what's coming in when and how I can divvy up what I have and how much I have left over to put aside. And it lets me see the whole thing in one sheet. It's very not complicated. And we call it Joan's ugly spreadsheet because when I showed this to a friend of mine who's creating a very complex system for keeping track of money, he said, boy, this is ugly. I said, yeah, it's ugly, but it really works for me. So you're welcome to share that, prosperityplace.com/spreadsheet. And every one of my clients who uses the spreadsheet now says that it's made their life much easier. If they're partnered, then they sit down with their partner and decide what's going to happen with the money, and it just makes life a lot easier. So in order to have more than enough, first of all, you have to make sure you're keeping track of your money, that you're keeping track of your income, your expenses, and that you learn how to manage cash flow. It's one thing to have a lot of money coming in, but if you don't know how to make the decisions as to how to allocate the funds, then you're going to wind up at that same net not enough space or just enough space. Because in your mind, you're going to say, oh, I can buy this now because I have more money. But you have to decide what your goal is. How much do you want to have in the bank as a cushion? How much do you want to have as a savings? The cushion account and the savings account are two different things. How serious are you about building wealth? Now, at the same time, I've had a number of clients who thought they didn't have enough, and they had a couple of $100,000 in the bank, and they certainly were making enough money to cover their expenses, and they were putting money away in a retirement fund, but they still felt there wasn't enough. And that's a feeling. It's a feeling. It's not a number. And the goal is to feel enough. And then your money will be enough, no matter what that is, and it'll be much easier to figure out a way to bring in more. And so I want you to really look at that. How much do I really need today? And am I willing, and this is the big one, am I willing to be calm and peaceful and satisfied with what I have? If you don't have enough for food, then you really have to find a solution. But being in that not enough space is going to keep you there unless you figure out a way out. And you may have to get help to do that. There are places you can go where other people are there and it doesn't cost anything. You can go to Debtors Anonymous. You can go to Codependents Anonymous. There are 12-step programs for just about everything. I think there's an Under Earners Anonymous. You need to find a support group. If you can afford it, even though you don't have enough, if you can afford a coach, then find one that is within a range that you think is affordable. I was talking to someone the other day who's always afraid that he doesn't have enough money for the future. Very afraid of the future, makes a very good living, has plenty put aside. And he talked to me about coaching, but wanted me to charge him much less than my normal fee. And I wasn't willing to do that because he was perceiving himself to have not enough. That was not my problem, because I knew that if he paid my normal fee, that I wouldn't be hurting him in any way. So the problem is there is no standard formula for figuring out what enough is, other than to say, what are your monthly expenses? If you don't have enough to cover your expenses, how can you cut some expenses down? And if you don't have enough, what can you do to earn more? We live in a capitalistic society. Those of you who are listening to this podcast are interested in being in business for yourself. And when you're in business for yourself, the standard question for when you think there's not enough to cover what you have to say, how do I get more? And am I realistically determining where I can get more? Or am I creating just another pie-in-the-sky idea that will keep me in a not enough position? I've seen that happen many times as well. So I really wanted to look at this not enough. And if you want to look at the reasons behind the not enough feelings, well, then you have to look at the whole family of origin thing, whether you come from a minority group. I know for right now, for African Americans, it's really difficult because of what's going on in the world. The world is saying, you're not enough. And to rise above that, I mean, it just breaks my heart to see what's going on in the world right now, where so many people are hating out loud I just don't get that. I really believe that the haters are the ones who really feel like not enough, and they have to create the other in order to feel better about themselves. I was talking to one of my African-American friends who belongs to the spiritual group that I belong to, and she's the only one. Because in Santa Fe, there are very few African-Americans. There are many Hispanics and Native Americans, but not many African-Americans. And she said she's afraid to walk out of the house now because some of the things that people are saying to her. And it just breaks my heart that so many people feel not enough. They have to perceive other people as less than they are. Isn't that awful? I mean, a lot of the stuff that goes on with women not being valued has to do with power positions. So it's important for you to look within yourself and really ask, what do I need to do for myself that to allow myself to feel enough or more than enough? I love that affirmation that we used to say when I used to go to Codependence Anonymous. The beginning of the meeting, one of the affirmations we did was, I am enough. And that was an interesting concept to me, for me to perceive myself as enough. I wasn't brought up with that idea. Girls were not enough. There were a lot of things about me that was not enough. And I had to see that just who I was, and people were seeing me from their point of view and creating me as the other. When you're a strong personality, that can often happen. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and what it'll take for you to feel like enough. I do offer my complimentary coaching session. All you have to do is go to prosperityplace.com/call, C-A-L-L, and it'll help you set up an appointment to talk to me. And I think the next episode that I do, I'll tell you about what's going on with the courses. There's some interesting stuff that's not working as far as I'm concerned with Udemy. And so I'm learning to combine Udemy with other platforms. And I know that a lot of you are interested in creating courses. It's the thing right now. It's like webinars were at one point. And I want to give people a realistic view of how to do this. John Colley and I are going to be doing a webinar on basic course creation. And my goal with that webinar is to help people get a realistic idea of what it takes. Anyone who's selling a course on how to build an online course is going to tell you it's really terrific. Those of you who know me know that I try to be really realistic about what it takes. I don't make big claims that you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars, and some people do, but average is not that. So we're going to do a webinar to give you a really realistic idea of what it takes to build a passive stream of income based on online courses. I'm committed to online courses. This is a way for me to share my knowledge in a way other than the podcast, where I can interact with people on a different level, because it's that interaction that really matters for me. So that's it for today. I want to thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you next time. Be sure to write to me at joan@prosperityplace.com and check out the show notes on prosperityplace.com. So that's it. Bye now.